With you on America's Mayor Live. And it is possible that tomorrow night I will have to do an early broadcast or a rerun, and I will do one that is very relevant because tomorrow night I'll be going to New York to the wake of Bernard Kerik, my former police commissioner, my former commissioner of corrections, and my former very best friend. And not my former very best friend, my very best friend. I pray for him every night now. I think of him constantly during this period of time of mourning, and I'm just going to show you my pictures of him. This is my picture of him on or after September 11 with Governor Pataki. I don't know exactly that scene. I do believe looking at the person in the background over the shoulder of the police commissioner is a man with glasses on named Richard Shearer. He was equally a hero. He was the head of emergency services for New York, which were run in a way that then became the model for emergency services for the next 10 years. And of course, there's our great governor, George Pataki, who was a 100% teammate of ours and someone who ran it brilliantly. This is a time when I do believe we found we either just did or we were about to go identify a body at the morgue. I'm looking at that fence, and that tells me that it was the morgue, and I'm looking at the guy with his head down. This is my explaining something. I don't think to the press, probably to one of our guys that the press took a picture of. It looks like I'm trying to tell them how to go into a certain place. There were many hazards in digging people out, because for the first 3 to 4 weeks below the ground were fires that at the very beginning were at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And should you be on something that was being affected by those fires, it would not be impossible to be sucked down into hell and burned to death. It was our great fear. And we tried to organize everything I did. And on my left, over my left shoulder is Tom Von Essen, who will be sitting with me at the funeral mass of Bernie. These were my two rocks of granite there on one side and the other. The police commissioner there, you see Bernie, and the fire commissioner Tom. Those are two men that God gave me that if I could go back and redo it, nobody else in the world I'd pick but those two men. And Richie, who you saw. There's nobody in the world that would have done it better or had more courage than they had, or wisdom. That's at a service, and he's informing me of something. I guess they didn't take pictures of occasionally. We did tell jokes, known as black humor. That is Saturday Night Live. That was a joke. And this was a memorial service. I'm going to guess it was the 20th memorial service. And here we are explaining something. And I want to see something here. No, it's not what I thought it was, but I think that was in a church, in the back of a church. Well, we'll have more on Bernie, because we definitely will be on from New York on Friday after the funeral, and we'll have footage of it, and we'll also have footage. We'll have footage for you tomorrow night also. But I'll be leaving early in the morning to get to New York in time for the wake, which is in New Jersey, and the funeral is at St. Patrick's Cathedral at 10 o'clock on Friday, and it'll be quite a funeral because this man affected many lives. The attack by Ukraine was certainly an attack heard around the world. Whatever Putin said to the president today, he got really destroyed in that attack. I would say that well, first of all, it's the worst attack in the history of Russia since the Second World War. Whether the numbers are as big as the Ukrainians say or not, the mere fact of penetration into the country in other words, it would be as if the Russians had a bomber that flew over the United States from New York to California, and we didn't pick it up. We didn't take it down. What would you say about our defense system? You'd say it's shitty, huh? You'd say it doesn't exist. I mean, I would say the Ukrainians, who are 1/30th their size, ripped their clothes off and made Putin stand there and show that he has a fat belly and laughed at him. I'm one of the great superpowers in the world, but it is impossible for me to stop a third-rate country from flying over my entire country and taking out any airbase they want anywhere in one of the largest land masses in the world. My reactive system for picking up hostile aircraft is so bad, you can fly 3,500 miles over it, and it doesn't affect anything. Also, you can operate in my country for 18 months, setting up massive bombings, and my intelligence service that I once ran doesn't get a hint of it. But we have excellent intelligence service. Do you ever think he's been exposed as a complete phony, bully, bullshit artist? And I don't know why the president is treating him with such respect today. He treated him neutrally, I would say. He treated him neutrally. And I guess that's the right thing to do. But I hope that isn't the internal feeling. The internal feeling should be whatever respect you had for this man as an adversary, lose it. Don't be that afraid of him. My goodness, look at this. They flew or hit. When I say flew, let me tell you what I really think. I don't think they were flying over. They penetrated. And there's even worse. They penetrated it for 18 months. They got into areas around four areas. That one in up near the Arctic Circle. Two, now catch this, two right next to Moscow. One in Asia and one in almost the far end of Russia. In each one of those places, they brought in trucks. They brought in missiles. They brought in personnel. They brought in large remote controls. And they set them up. Well, we don't know when they started setting them up. They say they've been planning it for 18 months. So, I mean, a lot of it had to be on the planning board. And then they successfully, and we think that their estimate is much closer to correct than the Russians, as it usually is. It looks now like they did do damage to 41 of their most important airplanes. The question is how much? We know that 13 are gone. The good thing about any damage they do to them, these are very old but very important airplanes where they don't have many parts to fill it. and the aircraft industry in Russia has gone to hell. They're not very, very good at it. They got to buy what they need, and nobody stocks this. And the main airplanes they hit were the large super tankers that carry nuclear weapons, and were being used as an answer to the short range or medium range ballistic missiles that are pointed at them from Europe. And this was going to be their deterrent to it. Well, that deterrent just got reduced by 1/3 or more. That's a lot to lose in one day to a country that you're 30 times bigger than. What happens if a country bigger than you starts to hit you? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think the American Pentagon takes out of watching this? Or the French? Germans, there's an article the other day that Germany's on the brink of war with Russia. I think it's an exaggeration, but I do think it does reflect the hostilities that have been created between Germany and Russia. It could be that Germany put aside the nuclear weapons. I don't know. Germany may be thinking they had a really hard time with Ukraine. I wonder about us, particularly if we combine ourselves with the Poles, who really want to fight Russia. They got a real desire to fight the Russians. I mean, that would be an enthusiastic endeavor on the part of patriotic Poles. Now, I do think we pointed out to you last night the significance of the bridge that they took out. Right? Very, very significant bridge that they took out, and you'd have to see it there on the other side. But, well, yeah, you can see it it's hard to get it large enough there. There it is right there. There's the bridge. There it is. That's the bridge they took out. So that bridge was another way for Russians to go from Russia to Crimea and not have to go through Ukraine. And the reason they carved this out during their invasion is so that they had a direct route into Crimea. And that's what they don't want to give back. And that's also what they want more of. I don't think that it's on the table that they're going to get more of it. I think it's on the table that they're going to get more of what happened to them on Saturday and Sunday. And at this point, I don't know that Ukraine shouldn't, that we shouldn't give Ukraine the capacity to try to win some of that back. You know, the more they win back, the more natural earth minerals we get for the next 100 years to compete with China and dominate the world. The European countries, our NATO allies, have already said that this has changed their minds about NATO, and that that they would object very strongly if there were a provision that Ukraine could not join NATO. You know why? They just saw a very valuable military ally. There are not too many European armies that could accomplish that, Ted. You think the French could accomplish that? That was an effort when you combine intelligence, you know, the undercover work of 18 months in Russia, with the complete surprise of it. There goes the Kerch Bridge. Goodbye, Kerch Bridge. Going to lose the tolls from that, Ted. That's even worse than what Chris Christie did to the Triborough Bridge.
Yes, this attack by Ukraine definitely marks.
It changes things. It
changes things.
It changes lots of calculations. I don't know where the statement came from. We'll go run it down. I think Germany, that they're now going to support their being part of NATO. You know, you put the pluses on this for Putin. Suppose Putin comes out of this with keeping that part of Ukraine that he took, right? But he loses the fact that two countries that were neutral, Finland and Sweden, are now part of NATO. The result of this war is doubling his border with NATO in order to prevent the Ukrainian border being NATO, which is a third the size.
Right.
So he got a 3 times larger border with NATO, with two countries that at least used to be more hostile. Ukraine, he used to have fairly good relationships.
Right.
And Finland, at least, is who you wouldn't think of, is already starting to think about, well, how do we defend ourselves? How do we fight? We'll see if Sweden, which hasn't fought since probably the 18th century. I don't know if they're thinking about it, but Finland certainly is. Estonia is. Estonia is kind of a little like Ukraine. Estonia was somewhat favorable to Russia. Of the 3 sort of triplets, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, the order of affection for Russia was Finland, Latvia, Lithuania. In other words, Lithuania had the most antagonism and Finland had the most affinity. I think they would now vie with each other in terms of separation and distrust of the mad murderer of Moscow. I guess the Russian Pearl Harbor has won the day, even though I object to the fact that it wasn't a sneak attack, meaning from two countries not at war with each other. This was retaliation for what was done to them by the Russians. There's nothing that Putin has to take revenge for. He's already taken his revenge by destroying cities, either completely or in great part, like Kiev and Kharkiv. And he's already done this to them many times over. Now, he is going to try to do something, but we'll have to see what it is. When I heard the whole nature of this, it seems to me if we had known the whole nature of this, meaning they secreted all these people in there and these big, gigantic pieces of equipment, and in one case, we're right next to the Russian security forces, they made a fool out of that guy. You wouldn't want this guy running your country. They made a fool out of Putin. He's like, ha ha, Putin. This is like the Trojan horse. This is like what the Greeks did to the Trojans. Except that one, was a little was just one horse. This is like 4 Trojan horses. One for Olenna, one for Ivanova, one from Diaghilevo. It might be one for that altogether. Belaya, and one for Ukranka. 4 Trojan horses that just blew the place apart. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you got a dopey boss like Putin? It goes so quickly. What a smart guy Putin is. He's so dangerous. He's a terrific warrior. This is a disgrace for him. Imagine being so irresponsible that you leave your country that wide open and go around threatening people all over the world. He and Medvedev threatened Finland and Sweden with nuclear war just 2 weeks ago, and they were this vulnerable. it's strange. I mean, the whole press is against Putin, and therefore Zelensky, right? However, there are certain things about Putin that they just accept and they don't analyze. Like, they don't analyze, and they could do this. It's harder to do in China. It could be done. They don't analyze, nor do we have very good information about exactly the nature of Putin's popularity in Russia. Now, there's enough interchange between us and Russia that we should be able to pick that up. And we don't. And during the Cold War, we had a far better understanding of that. Now, it is true that China closed down completely with Xi Jinping. We had a lot more internal information about China, and I can understand and sympathize with the fact that we're operating with less than all the intelligence we should have when we're talking about China. But as you can see from what the Ukrainians did, Russia's a sieve. Also, even during the Cold War, and this is an area I worked in, so I know this, Russia wasn't all that hard to penetrate. Russians have big mouths, and you can get them to talk pretty easy. As a group, they love to bullshit, and they love to talk, and they love to exaggerate, particularly when you sit there and you learn how to drink vodka with them. You know how you drink vodka with them? You get fat. Have you ever gone to a really traditional Russian, this would be true in Ukraine too, meal? So here's the table, right? And we got 12 people, and grandma's making the meal. When you walk in and sit down, like if we sit down at our Thanksgiving table, we expect, the turkey may be on the table or not as a decoration, but we're not gonna eat it right away, right? We're gonna have our first course, and it's gonna be served. And maybe it's gonna be some kind of soup. And then we're gonna have a second course, maybe, right? And then we're gonna cut up the turkey and have the turkey, and then we're gonna have something else, and then something else. When a Russian meal, it's all on the table. The whole thing's on the table. But in particular, at the beginning, there's every bread known to man on the table. Every starch you can think of. And the Russian big drinkers are eating that bread, not like a piece. Meanwhile, here's to the host. Here's to the guest. Here's to the children. Here's to the children's children. Meanwhile, the people not eating all that bread, they're like this. And the guy's eating all the bread. Stay sober. So you stick with them. And once they get like that, boy, you say to them, exactly how many miles is it to the Olenya? You know, I was thinking of taking a trip over to Olenya, get a nice view of that beautiful, beautiful facility you have there in the snow. What would be the exact best way to get there? You know how some people get nervous about my going there? They would get nervous. They think I'm a spy. You know I'm not a spy. Show me the way I can get there. Nobody would see me. Yeah, I'll take it. To get a Chinese guy to do that is tough. To get a Russian to do that ain't so tough. So then, of course, the Ukrainians can make themselves appear to be Russian, can't they? Which is a great advantage. But we've got plenty of, during the Cold War, we had plenty of Americans who made themselves appear to be Russian, and vice versa. Plenty of Russians who made themselves appear to be American. But this was about as big a rape, talking in government terms, that has ever taken place of a country of this military status. No longer of this military status. So maybe, just maybe, this may do for the people of Russia, who do have a little bit of their own mind, more so than in China, and certainly a lot more so than in North Korea. this may start them thinking, this guy's taking a risk with us, this Putin guy, for his own reputation. What the hell do we need Ukraine for, except he wants to be like the czar? He wants to recreate the old Soviet empire. We were all starving when we had the Soviet empire. Why don't we stick with what we got and see if we can start getting rich like these other countries? Because they sure as hell are not a rich country for what they got. Maybe if we calm down, people would do business with us. People think like that in Russia. They did once before, not so long ago. Now, Ukraine also has its set of problems. Its sovereign debt is in default. It can't pay what it owes. The government claims to have the money to do it. They just can't do it right now, and they want to do it part of all one plan. I don't want to raise this today, but when things calm down, there's going to have to be a come to Jesus meeting about what happened to all that money. Because one of the reasons why there's a division in opinion in America about supporting Ukraine is because there's tremendous doubt that that money wasn't sucked up by the second most corrupt country in the world, which is Ukraine. Now, people are so funny. They just go with their emotions. And you can see I am talking favorably about Ukraine, correct? But I haven't forgotten that they're one of the most corrupt countries in the world. I haven't forgotten that Zelensky is a crook, just like I never forgot that Putin is a murderer. Now I see people on television that were against Ukraine talking about what a terrific government they have. They do not have a terrific government. They've got a totally dishonest government. And if and when we can get them through this, it's really going to be our obligation to try to straighten that government out for the good of the people of Ukraine. None of that has changed. Nor has the simple fact changed that there's, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? There's the good, the bad, and the evil. The Ukrainian government is in the category of bad. The Russian government is in the category of evil. And as between the two, let's go with bad. Because then that's easier to bring it down to good. Make any sense? Ted?
Makes sense to me, man.
Okay, all right. Also, why don't we just stay out of it? How does this concern us? One, two, three, four, five. I've been fighting with isolationists all my life. Isolationism caused the Second World War. I don't think by any means that we should involve ourselves in disputes all over the world. As a youngster, a conservative youngster, a youngster who was anti-communist, I always had doubts about the Vietnam War based on the words of MacArthur. It was the wrong place and the wrong time to fight a war. And a land war in Asia shouldn't be fought as a land war in Asia. It should be fought in the air, right? And also, if we're going to fight it, let's fight it to win it, not as some kind of police action and get our soldiers killed for no reason, when we could have won it if we had invaded China. Just like they could win this by seriously bombarding Russia with the help of Europe. Russia is extremely vulnerable. And you say, well, maybe they'll use one of those nukes. I would say they know, or there shouldn't be any doubt about this. Somebody should have told them when Medvedev and Putin threatened nuclear power a couple of weeks ago. Somebody should have told them, if that happens, I hope you realize you're not going to prevent us from taking out Moscow. You don't have an air defense system that we can't solve. We've gamed this 100 times, and we have 100 different ways of doing it. But there'll be no more Moscow. Putin will be the guy who destroyed Moscow. Napoleon couldn't do it. Hitler couldn't do it. Trump can. You use a nuclear weapon, no more Moscow. Yeah, he should know that. John F. Kennedy's book, Why England Slept, contained another concept, and that was that it was sort of as a secondary thought, but that the First World War happened because we weren't clear enough with each other. The various powers weren't clear enough with each other about what would happen. In other words, they were working on guesswork. And he always vowed that I don't want anyone not to know what will happen. I want them to know what I'm going to do. I'll try to say it not as a threat, so they'll believe me, but I want them to know what I'm going to do. So when they make a decision, they make it based on not, will England follow France into a battle? That's why I think this whole thing with Taiwan, the policy that we agreed to, a lot of the things we did with China are so stupid that we have this sort of like cute little, well, we're not going to defend Taiwan, but we are going to defend Taiwan. China should know what we're going to do. And damn it, we should be defending Taiwan. I hope it has been delivered to Putin right between the eyes. You use one of those damn nuclear weapons, and we take out your favorite city. And by the way, we're taking out Moscow. We're not limiting it to Moscow. We're going to want to make sure that you can't hit us back. So I don't know. You can basically say goodbye to your country as a functioning military power. We won't hit the civilian areas other than your capital. But if we took out those bases, if the Ukrainians did damage to their bases, I don't know. What do you think if the Americans, the English, the Canadians, the Australians got a chance to do what they wanted to do to you for 40 or 50 years? I don't know. I hope we're having those realistic conversations. Those are the conversations that prevent war. It's the dancing around and the fooling around and the where people are making assumptions and calculations and they make them wrong. That leads to massive, massive death. Some people say we're in World War III. We are not in World War III yet.
So, Mayor, what happens next?
But Walter Russell Mead is correct. We are in a pre-war period. And the pre-war period is very reminiscent of the Second World War. Now, what happens next? Putin hits back. If he hits back on the level at which he's been hitting so far, it probably doesn't lead to a massive escalation. So let's say he tries again to take Kursk. He makes another attempt at Kharkiv, and he tries to expand his territory in the Oblast. All of that is within the range of what he's done before. It's in the range of their being able to defend themselves. I think it's really important that his targets would have to be military targets. If he hits military targets, if he decides he's going to hit Kiev, which is a civilian city, he just escalated the war into, I don't know, pretty close to a major war. Because the only answer to that, I don't know that you hit Moscow over that, but maybe you hit one of the smaller cities, or maybe you hit St. Petersburg, their beautiful European city. But if they take out if they take out a Ukrainian city, you got to take out a Russian city.
Right. Well,
you can't hold and with what they did, okay, with what they did, I want you, if you look at the map again, you'll see how close Moscow is. Taking out Moscow looks like it's well within their capacity.
Here's the President Putin.
They could almost walk to Moscow. Since nobody can recognize them, maybe they'll just drive. Maybe they'll just drive 30 trucks in there.
Regime in Kiev that came to power through a coup is now being reborn as a terrorist organization.
So now
And
Putin
its
has to think.
sponsors become supporters of terrorism. Recently, the Ukrainian government and their allies dreamt of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. Now they're withdrawing from the battle zone, fleeing, and now the Kiev regime is trying to resort to terrorist attacks. At the same time, they're asking for a ceasefire. They're asking for top-level meetings. But how can we organize such meetings? Something like this is happening. What is there to talk about? How can we negotiate with those who are resorting to terrorism? And why should we reward them with a cessation in hostilities?
So it sounds like at home, Putin is portraying these as terrorist attacks.
Well, I don't know. Do you think the Russian people really fall for that? They know they've been at war. They know that they have been at war with Ukraine for 2 years, right? How is this a terrorist attack? First of all, they hit military bases. Second, they've been attacking Ukraine without ceasing for 24 months. How is this a terrorist attack? I mean, it's almost, it's as if he says things, he's like a Democrat. He says things and immediately the first thing that you see on the screen is lie. Of course it's not a terrorist attack. It's part of the war. It's exactly what you did, except more effective. I don't know that the Russian people can't be that stupid. They have to, the Russian people know they're at war with Ukraine. Some of them support it, some of them don't. Ukraine now comes and bombs their air bases. That's a terrorist attack? What did he expect they were going to do? Just sit there and let him bomb the shit out of them?
Right. So it'll be interesting. I guess.
So I don't know.
They can't totally.
I don't know. Even in Russia, I don't know if it's that effective to lie to your people like that.
Yeah. Well,
particularly, it has to be that regular Russians are saying, how good is this guy, Putin?
Right.
We just got hit all the way across the other side of Russia. I mean, that damn thing almost got to China. It did get to China. It got past China.
So
it's at the eastern end of Mongolia. I'm looking at the map there. It's the eastern end of Mongolia. I mean, they hit that one to make a point. And the two around Moscow, you know what that point is. Right. This really depends on how angry Trump is at him. I don't think they'd hit Moscow without Trump at least winking. But I do think the Europeans are there. I think if Trump were to take a vote of NATO and let's say the only thing he can do to ratchet it up now, to really deliver a terrible blow to Ukraine, is to take out Kyiv, take out their capital. If he does that, I have no doubt that way beyond a majority of the European governments would be in favor of taking out Moscow for their own protection. Remember, they're the first line of defense. I would say that Germany, leading it, would convince England and France and Italy. Poland, go do it by themselves. Poland, just go do it. Certainly, if the big countries were going to do it, the countries feeling threatened by them and threatened with nuclear war, like Finland and Sweden and Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia, would say yes. Spain wouldn't, because Spain are a bunch of sniveling little communists. But they just shut up. So there'd be a tremendous amount of pressure to hit Moscow. And then, of course, we'd have the odd man out here is America. What would America say? There was a time we thought we knew the answer to that. But I in reporting to you, I don't know the answer to that. I know my answer to it. I just don't know what their answer to it will be. Well, on another subject, do we need to do? Oh my goodness! Oh, we may have no sponsors, and we have such wonderful sponsors, like Tunnel to Towers. Oh God, we're blessed by having them as a sponsor. I'm sure Frank will be there. Frank has already been to the family to help Bernie. Yeah, Bernie, a police officer who died, and he'll be there for Bernie. Well, we'll take a short break. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee. This is Rudy Giuliani back with you on America's Mayor Live. The anti-Semitic attack in Colorado, you know, in most of the newspapers, it was not reported that the attempted murderer was an illegal alien. In fact, there's even a dispute as to whether he's an illegal alien because he had a visa and he overstayed his visa. Overstaying your visa is illegal. Then he got a job permission. So they say, well, that made him legal. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. More than likely, he got the job thing in a sanctuary city where they violate federal law. They can't make federal law go away. So there's no question that he's illegal. And that should be reported to the American public. They should know that. Now, it must have come as a shock to the American public, having not had that reported to them by anything but a few of the news outlets, that his family was deported today. Had to be even a bigger shock that a federal judge who has no role in immigration and people who are here who are not citizens really don't have any rights to absolutely remain here, no matter what happens. They prevented the president of the United States from removing them, even though it's quite possible that some of these people could be involved with him. And since you don't have a right to be here, since you're here at our sufferance, why do we have to take a chance? So let's analogize it to our home. Suppose we put up this group of people in our home, and we found out that the father, the so-called breadwinner of the home, we found out that well, let's say we saw a picture of him like that. Now this guy and his family is living with us, and we saw in his hand a Molotov cocktail like that. And then we heard that he really wanted a gun so that he could shoot and kill a mass number of people, but that he settled for Molotov cocktails so he could burn Jewish people to death. Would you keep his family in your house when you know they made the same hijira that he did, the same trip that he came out of Egypt, that he spent years in Kuwait, that he then came to the United States, that a year after he was in the United States, he made a phony claim of asylum. Had to be phony because he would have made it right away if he did. And then if you were smart and you really knew world history, you'd know he was a Muslim brother. You'd know that because you'd know that's why he was in Kuwait and not in Egypt for that 13-year period. It's like he could have Muslim brother written on his chest for me. Now he's got you got to take the risk that the sweet little girl who's going to medical school isn't one of them. Now you got to take a risk that the mother isn't, or that they won't do things that will do tremendous harm to you to help him escape. Wouldn't you throw them out of your house? I don't know. It's certainly, I don't think anybody should stop you from throwing them out of the house. Well, a judge has just stopped the guy with the responsibility to make this decision for us from doing that. The judge doesn't know any of these things. The judge doesn't know the background of the family. The president of the United States does. I bet if I went and told the judge what I just told you about the Muslim Brotherhood, he'd look at me and he'd scratch his stupid Biden head. I bet he would have no idea that you could immediately tell if he's Egyptian and he's away for those 13 years in Kuwait. He's a terrorist. He's connected to the Muslim Brotherhood because Sisi. I don't know if Sisi would kill you if you're a Muslim brother, but good chance he'd put you in jail. There's a good reason for that. They want to kill him. And would you really want this family hanging around whose breadwinner hates all Jews, wants to kill all Jews? So these people have no more right to be in our country than they have to be in your house. They're here at our pleasure. Therefore, we can throw them out. And if it's an emergency, which this is, we should be able to do it without having to have a 14-week trial. If we ever had to have a 14-week trial, we'd be having trials into the next century. We got, what was the number today? 15 million of them. Michael Goodwin calculates 15 million. I'll go with Michael's calculation, although I believe it's larger. And I do believe, and I meant to call Tom Homan about this because he said the gotaways were 2 million. But I think when he says gotaways, he's talking about people they got to see but couldn't really fully identify or capture. He's not talking about the people we never get to see. And I'm gonna base that on studies that used to be done that I was very aware of by Ivy League schools when they taught math that say that the number of people that get in that you never know about amounts to 50 to 200% of the people that you know about. That's a big percentage. That's a very, very big percentage. So I mean, these judges are becoming monsters. It turns out that this guy was appointed by Biden. And they say, well, gee, it's not important who he was appointed by. 90%, close to 90% of the judges who have entered completely absurd injunctions, you know, they're in Delaware, smallest state in the country, and they issue an injunction against the entire country. They don't have jurisdiction over the entire country. They're not the president. They don't have jurisdiction over. They don't even have a role in immigration. It's a political question left to the two other branches of government. But these people are so damn arrogant because they're liberals. And they're so damn anti-American, they'll do anything to hurt this country. Well, we had more illegals come in during Biden's period of time per year than at any time in our history. We never had that many illegals come in. So 15 million in 15 million in 4 years, and 12 million in Ellis Island in 65 to 70 years. You know what the total amount of immigrants to the United States during the era of the Great Immigration was? This is Ellis Island, the whole United States. From 1880 to 1930, 27 million. That was over 50 years. We took in 15 million that we know of. 15 million that we know of in 4 years.
That's just amazing.
The 27 million that we took in during that period were legal. They were vetted. They almost all wanted work. They almost all had work when they came in. This last group, nobody works. Yeah, when you say they're going to lose jobs, the illegals are going to lose jobs. We're talking about the prior illegals, not this group. Not this group. The president is doing an admirable job in focusing on the issue of anti-Semitism. For the first time, a president is doing that, and that is going to reap some real reward for us. But we're not going to feel it right away because the level of it is getting worse and worse and worse, and they're organizing more and more. I mean, it's not accidental that last week we had Elias Rodriguez, who was shouting "Free, free Palestine," and killed two young people who were coming out of a peaceful little gathering talking about how to make peace in the Middle East, or that Cody Balmer set the governor of Pennsylvania, who's Jewish, house on fire. That's a pretty audacious act. These are things that are magnified by the things we have done nothing about, like the protests all last summer, where people are yelling anti-Jewish remarks, carrying anti-Jewish effigies, and everybody that could say something that might have an influence on people that think in that direction are hiding somewhere. You know, Schumer is hiding somewhere in the basement of a Wall Street firm collecting money, or Pelosi's working on a husband with how you do a phony insider trading transaction, or nobody's saying anything about it. Meanwhile, right in the House of Representatives, you've got the squad spouting off all kinds of anti-Semitic crap, and presumably perfectly okay because nothing's done about it by the Democrats. And you got a guy running for mayor of New York on the Democratic ticket who every day says things that would get you thrown off the radio 20 years ago. There's a great singer who used to sing for the Yankees, and he made a joke, and the Yankees got rid of him because the joke could be interpreted as anti-Semitic. I always thought that I'd give him the benefit of the doubt because the guy, I don't want to bring it up unnecessarily because I like all the people involved. But the guy was one of the people who was at my side at 50 churches singing Ave Maria and Danny Boy, and he has a beautiful tenor voice. He's one of two that did most of it. The other was a police officer who's also fabulous. But I'm talking about how these things were marginal. These are I mean, we threw people off the radio. This stuff is horrendous, the things they say. So the point that I'm making, they're saying it is bad enough. An entire political party that represents somewhere near half the number of people in the country sits by and listens to it as if it's acceptable. That makes it acceptable. That makes it acceptable. The ADL used to have a rule. I think they still do because they're in this fight somewhat, not early enough and not the way they should be because they were held back by partisan political feelings. That you can't let the slightest bit of anti-Semitism go unnoticed. You got to get right on top of it right away, like the broken window theory. Well, that didn't happen here. They didn't let the slightest little anti-Semitism get away. They let the squad spout off like they were a bunch of budding Nazis. And then they let the whole thing with Colombia and all those other places go nuts. And the highest ranking Jewish member of Congress hasn't said a word about it. In fact, he's got a bill that would set up a whole apparatus to combat anti-Semitism, which Trump is doing without the authorization. It could be a lot more effective with it. He's blocking the bill from being voted on in the Senate. Can you believe that? I mean, the mere fact that he's doing that, shouldn't they just not let him in any temple? And if I were Jewish and he came to my temple, I'd throw him out. But he's a Democrat. Kevin Youkilis. Do you baseball fans remember Kevin Youkilis? He played every position for the Red Sox, right? He was pretty much of a Yankee killer. Although do you know he played his last season for the Yankees? Euclid used to. First of all, I'm a different kind of baseball and football fan, as Ted knows. I don't hate. I actually like my rival teams better than I do the other teams because I get to know them. So I like the Red Sox, and I like the teams that we played when I got to know them. And Euclid I always liked. He's a real man's man. Well, Euclid comes out of nowhere. He is Jewish, I remember, and I do now remember because it's mentioned in the article that he was the coach for the Israeli Olympic baseball team. But Euclid, so he must be a very proud Jew. God bless him. God bless you, Kevin. So he's basically told Ocasio-Cortez to stop her virtue signaling because she made some kind of a soppy statement of pretending to be upset about what happened in Colorado. And he basically reminded her of how she stands with the squad who helped to create Colorado. Good for you, Kevin. You have a right to do that. You're Jewish. Even if you're not, you have a right to talk about things like this. Jews are targeted with violence and the same virtue signal passed time and time again. What have you done to confront those calling for intifadas in New York City? Until you create a plan of action, your repeated virtue signaling after the violence occurs holds no weight. Confront the radical mobs chanting for intifadas in New York City. That would be brave leadership, but we know politicians on both sides of the aisle shy away in fear of losing votes and power. Just wish he would have said, not Donald Trump. Or a lot of us Republicans. There is a man who I would like to talk to, Ted, this actor Michael Rappaport. Do you know Michael Rappaport?
I know who he is.
You do? You know a lot more people than I do. You know that? His face is familiar.
Yeah, you'd probably seen.
But he looks like Sean Penn, which means he looks a little weird. He's very angry that nobody is sticking up for the Jews. Doesn't he listen to our show? Right. Does he listen to Bannon's show? Right. I don't know. Does he listen to Newsmax? Right. My goodness, the whole station stands up for the Jews. They're gonna do a whole hijira to Israel in support of the Jewish people. He doesn't hear the President of the United States. Right. President of the United States is doing the unprecedented act and taking on a heat for going after the universities to protect Jewish people. Right?
Right.
So I think he's partially right, but I just, and of course I sympathize with him because the Jewish people shouldn't have to go through this, but I wonder how he's looking at the world. Do you think he that he's some kind of a Democrat who just doesn't want to admit that Republicans are standing up for the Jewish people?
Yeah.
Did you see the article in the Post?
I did not.
Actor Michael Rappaport unleashed a blistering, profanity-laced tirade warning Jewish people that the cavalry isn't coming to save them, calling out the broader public for not doing SHIT, following Sunday's anti-Semitic terror attack. He feels like a sucker for advocating for other marginalized communities that suffered atrocities while the Jewish population remains vulnerable against an influx of violent extremists. Now, there's some truth to that. The Jewish people are one of the best at taking up causes that are lost causes and underdog causes, or if there's a terrible attack in a country or a terrible hurricane or a terrible typhoon or a terrible, Jewish people are in the forefront of being very charitable. I would say, you know, if you can attribute national characteristics, which I get a little nervous about because there are always exceptions to it. But yeah, it does seem to me, in my experience, that Jewish people do take up the cause of the underdog. So his point here is very good. We take up the cause of the underdog. Who's there for us? Well, I don't think he notices that there are a lot of people there for him. I'll tell you something, Jewish people, the cavalry isn't coming. The 55-year-old cautioned on his I Am Rappaport podcast, the cavalry is not coming for us. They don't give a damn. He actually used a much worse word. The true romance actor's explosive rant comes 2 days after Solomon. Nobody is coming and saying anything on our behalf. Jewish people, Zionist people. Gee, I mean, you got 4, 5, 6 columns here in the Post, including editorials standing up for the Jewish people.
Right.
Maybe he just doesn't know that there's a right wing. Can we find him? Put him on.
Yeah, we definitely. He's big on Instagram, so I was just looking up.
He has a podcast.
Yeah, we'll try to get him on. He would.
I just wonder. I wonder where he's coming from. That's all. I can understand in frustration. Maybe he's not aware of. He's not aware of that there's another voice in America, and not the Hollywood left-wing voice. And they are almost as of one. This has been a subject of major coverage by conservative media. It's dominated Newsmax. It's even taken up a lot of time on Fox.
Right.
And we don't trust Fox completely. But on this, they've been... I just think that should be corrected. That should be corrected. The Washington Post, okay? The Washington Post originally published that the IDF in Gaza, that the soldiers shot 31 civilians. Israel immediately denied it, but they didn't accept that denial. They accepted the word of a acknowledged terrorist group, Hamas. The Hamas press agency put it out. This is the same group that said that the Israelis bombed a hospital that was actually bombed by the Palestinians. Now, they issued the correction, Ted, on X. My understanding of a correction was, from my understanding of libel law, that it has to be published with the same, or as much as possible, in the same place and with the same intensity as the original defamation. Well, X is not the same place. I'm sorry. A lot of people who look at X don't bother to read the Washington Post. A lot of people don't read the Washington Post. It should have been in the Washington Post. Maybe it was. And if it was, I'll be corrected. Right. But maybe it should never have happened at all. Aren't they professional enough not to take as gospel the word of lying terrorists? I mean, do they really believe that we make up the fact that Hamas is a terrorist group? Doesn't Hamas do enough things to show them that they're a terrorist group? Now, if you want to take a look at the picture I got up on the screen, that's a picture that was contemporarily available. And if you see the two circles, the guy, and there's a much better shot than that you get from Israeli intelligence. That guy is a Hamas member, and he's doing the shooting.
Right.
The IDF identified it immediately and corrected it immediately.
Right.
And put out videos to prove it.
Right.
Now, a number of publications didn't cover it, but they did, and it becomes part of this hysteria going on now about. I mean, a lot of people are joining the Jews must stop what they're doing in Gaza.
Right.
Well, they will add to it that they killed 31 people. They're not going to know about the retraction.
Right.
Most of what the Jews are doing in Gaza is to eliminate the group that wants to destroy the Jewish people. Shouldn't they?
Right.
They're the Jews are willing to agree to a ceasefire. It's Hamas that won't agree to the ceasefire. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers. His number two, Kim Moon-so, ran as the opponent of Lee Jae-myung. Kim would have been the conservative candidate, and Lee is the off-the-wall left-wing candidate who seems to like China and also seems to like North Korea. However, during the campaign, because he was considered too far out, and things have soured in the relationship with North Korea and China since then, Lee, who once likened himself to Bernie Sanders, has said that he is going to continue Yoon's foreign policy, expanding the alliance with the United States, cooperating with Japan, and challenging North Korea on human rights. But Lee, who once likened himself to Bernie Sanders, doesn't want South Korea's relations with the U.S. to exclude ties with China and Russia. He does call the Washington relationship the basis axis of our diplomacy. But that doesn't mean we should completely rely on the U.S. alliance. So, you know, all those statements are fine. We know where his heart is. His heart is with the red Chinese. So we got to watch it really carefully. Really carefully, because at this point, Korea is important to us and important to Japan. The relationship of this political party with Japan is very, very bad. And as I said, we are breaking down into axes, which is really dangerous, because that's what we did in the wake of World War, in the build up to World War II. So that, you know, if people often would say, well, Japan attacked us, why do we declare war against Germany? Shouldn't we have waited for Germany to declare war against us? And if they didn't, clean up Japan and then worry about Germany? It's a good question. It's a good question. The answer would be that everybody had, they'd become like a team. They'd become like one. At least that was the feeling, right? So now, if you'd give me my whiteboard, Ted, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to put on my whiteboard on this side of it here. I'm going to put down how it seems to be breaking down, okay? And then we'll be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast.
Ted, let me make sure I put this, welcome back. Make sure I put this in a place they can all see it. Is that good? You have a nice shot at it? Yep. So here is how the world breaks down right now. As of today, and particularly with the exacerbation of the Ukraine situation. So let's go with the Chinese access first. China can count on Russia, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and then a whole bunch of others. Possibly, possibly some of the other South American countries, some of the African countries. South Africa could be one, but I'm trying to put down the main ones. The U.S. can count on, for sure, Israel, UK. You could have put them in either order in terms of their allies. Of course, Canada, despite what's going on. Of course, Australia, 100%. The Philippines, I put the Philippines there because they have a major problem with China. I mean, they'd be leading the charge. I left North Korea. I let South Korea out largely because of what's going on with the new president. Italy, of course, France, of course, Poland, of course, Germany, of course, the EU in general, all of the other smaller countries. On the fence, I should have put South Korea on the fence, but would end up with us. India on the fence because they're part of the BRIC nations with China, but they're going to end up with us. And Vietnam on the fence, and they're going to remain on the fence. But I don't think they're going to go with China. Now, when that happens, an attack on one can sometimes be used as an excuse to ignite the whole damn thing. And that's how it becomes a world war. If the dispute is just between Israel and Iran, that's one thing. But Iran is lined up allies, and so is Israel. And that's how you get a conflagration that becomes a world war. You know, before the 20th century, we never had a world war. Now, maybe we didn't call it a world war. The 100 Years' War in Europe could have been, I mean, it wasn't a world war, it was a long war. Also, maybe they became world wars because they spanned more than one continent. They were bigger in terms of expenditures of money and things similar to that. Well, we're in New Hampshire. We're on our way to New York for tomorrow to go to the wake, as I told you. We'll be back with you at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, one way or the other. We'll be back at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. We'll be with you on Friday for sure. And we'll keep you up to date on what's going on in this very, very consequential period of time for our history, a period of time that I really do think is going to mark the direction we go in for the next 100 years. And we're very, very fortunate to have the leadership that we have. Therefore, I'm going to ask you once again to pray for the repose of the soul of my good friend and your good friend, Bernard Kerik, who was on the show any number of times. Maybe we will, in preparation for the next couple of days, his wake and his funeral, pull out a couple of examples of when he was on the show. Sometimes by video, sometimes by audio, and sometimes in person. Great man. Let's pray for peace. Let's pray that all of this, I mean, we've been close to war before, and we've been able to avoid it. I don't think we've ever been this close to a world war where you have lineups like that, where countries are taking sides, but that doesn't mean we have to enter it. I do think, but I can't be 100% sure that these people, Putin and Xi, don't want war. Now, I think that. Am I sure of that? You see me shaking my head? So let's hope and pray that it doesn't happen. Let's hope and pray that cooler heads prevail, wiser people, and then that people have a regard for human life, and that's part of the problem, isn't it? Part of the problem is that we know that Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin have no regard for human life. That's the difference also between the Jews and Hamas. The Jews tried to carry on the war of defense without killing children. They try to do it based on their religion and their ethics and their decency, and they try to do it on the basis of practicality, that it's used against them. The Palestinians deliberately allow their children to be killed as shields for them, not just because they're miserable animal cowards, but because they know that as a matter of public relations, that helps them win the war. They also exaggerate the number, like they did before. I mean, how many times haven't they been caught in falsely accusing the IDF of killing children. And probably you could take that number of children killed and you could attribute it, at least half of it, to the Palestinians, either people they killed directly or people they killed by putting them in the line of fire. That's what you have to look at, and that's why you have to listen to shows like mine so that you get, I know it sounds terribly pretentious, but you get the truth, other side of the story, if you will, but the truth. Thank you very much for listening to us. We'll be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on Lindell TV, and we'll see how Mike's doing in his trial too. And then we'll be back tomorrow night at 8 to see how we're coming along on this. And at some point, we're going to all be surprised and see exactly what Putin does in response. We may find out tomorrow. And that'll give us a real sense of where it's going. And let's hope we wake up one of these days and the Iranian missiles are gone. I think that it'd have a big impact on disciplining Putin as well. So pray for Bernie Kerik. Pray for all of us. God bless America.
Ah.